So I got to ask you, if your sister was that good at basketball, what sports were you into as a kid?
Yeah, were you an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I taught her how to play basketball, and that was the.
Oh, your little
beautiful-
sister.
This is my baby sister.
And she surpassed you?
She did.
Yeah.
She did.
She's a Hall of Fame.
I mean, it went, and the beautiful thing about it is, you know, like I got into basketball around like 5th, 6th grade. So I'm 5 years older than her.
Mm.
So I taught her, you know, that was like, so, you know, like I taught, we started the journey young, and I taught her how to play. And it went from, you know, playing in the backyard and at our hoop in the driveway. And then she would come and, you know, she looked up to me. She wanted to be with me. She would, you know, come hang with my friends. She would play with us. And, you know, it was kind of like the, you know, I mean, she always just kind of like tagged along. And then it went from, you know, kind of, you know, the baby sister hanging around to like, okay, she's playing with us. And, you know, and then like she's, you know, she could be any one of my friends.
Interesting.
Is she tall too?
No, she's like 5. I was asking her that the other
She's like,
day. She's between 5. She said she's between 5'6" and 5'8".
Okay.
Somewhere around there.
So she's tall. Well, I'm 5'6".
But her shoot,
she's
like,
in my
bro,
ballpark.
even when we go to this hilarious story, the Papa Shot. You know, when you go to like the places
like
where they got batting cages and all that.
Yeah.
So my sister and I have always been competitive against each other. Like our one-on-one battles were like, I was sometimes afraid like the cops were going to be called.
Yeah,
that's funny.
There were
like,
cops.
there's a domestic dispute, but it's just you and your sister just having fun.
I mean, like she's pushed me into a pole. It was some serious battles.
Right.
Yeah, that Michael Jordan relationship, him and his brother.
Right.
Yeah.
And so couple years ago, no, like 2 years ago, we went to the Papa Shot. We were in Wrigleyville. Someone knows about Wrigleyville. It's where the
Oh, dude, I know what Wrigleyville is.
Yeah.
It went. So we're in Wrigleyville.
It's Disneyland for bros.
We're in Wrigleyville. And she goes to this Papa Shot thing, right? So over the years, the last 5 years or so, we've stopped being competitive with each other because sometimes it leads to arguments and fights and stuff. And we didn't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So, but we went to do this Papa Shot. And I mean, she was just like amazing. Like did not miss, like set the new record, broke the score there. And it was like nothing I could really do against her.
Right.
And then we played air hockey. I beat her in air hockey. So I told her, I was like, yeah, but I won I was like, I beat you in air hockey. And then she was like, yeah, but what did we come there for?
That's real talk. Like you had to check it out. You had to go to air hockey. I'm trying to hoop.
I couldn't say. I couldn't. I had no rebuttal to that.
Jordan, she's like Jordan because Jordan can't do that. Jordan can't lose in anything. You know what I mean? Like, have you heard about like how he'll like gamble with an old lady and he gets competitive? Let me ask you this though. Like leading into like teaching,
and a girl named is Paige Beckers, by the way, too.
Paige Beckers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is she? And she's what WNBA?
No, she's college. She plays for UConn, but she's gonna be the number one pick this year for sure.
Would you guys have ever, like as like teachers and stuff like that? Would you guys have ever wanted to coach? Because you're just gonna have to be at the school.
I've done
more.
that.
You did it as a teacher.
I've done pretty much everything that you can do.
Sorry to interrupt. Super quick. Let's like bring it back because like we got to introduce you. We got Dave Getzoff.
Dave Getzoff, everybody.
Dave went on in. Let's go.
We've got Dave Getzoff, and you were you. What'd you teach? SPED?
No, I've taught that. But
what'd you say?
Yeah, I was like, he's a SPED. No, I'm saying he teaches SPED.
Okay.
He teaches special ed.
I taught when I taught full time. For 10 out of those 14 years, I was a classroom teacher. No, I'm sorry, 12. 12 out of those 14, I was a classroom teacher, mainly second grade.
Oh, dude, what was it like teaching second grade?
That's the best grade.
I liked it because I did my student teaching in third grade. And
what was third grade like?
Third grade is kind of like, that's like the last grade that they're kind of like little, but kind of getting a little bit, older. But I had a great mentor. I taught my student teaching. I did it in Evanston.
Illinois.
In Evanston, Illinois,
Purple
at the school that was right next to, I student taught at Washington Elementary School. The place where I was a summer camp counselor for 10 years was Robert Crown. It was literally, they were right next to each other. I had kids in my student teaching class that I was their summer camp counselor.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
That was my first dream was I wanted to be like a fixture in the community and one of those persons that, that's there forever and, has had all the families. So it wasn't
comedy first. It was teaching.
It was first because I started working with kids when I was 15.
Dude, how'd you start working with kids at 15? Like, what were you doing?
So my best friend, George Artepe, he got a job as a summer camp counselor.
Okay.
And our boss was the late, great George Dotson. He just died a couple months ago.
R.I.P.
So George is a community leader. Like he knew everybody. And so I wanted to work with my best friend, George. Mm-hmm. And he only did one summer. He's never worked with kids again. But I came on and that's what started it. When I was like 15, 16, as a sophomore in high school. And then and then I did it all through high school and all through college. And I think a couple years post college, but I've always, and then even before that, like I said, I my sister was technically like my first student. Because I taught her how to play basketball. And then even there was a kid in our neighborhood. His name was Andy Hopple. He was a neighbor and he used to come to the house and he used to want to like hang around me and be around my sister. And I would kind of, like just work with him and teach him a little bit. And
these are such storybook children names. I don't know why, but like Andy Hopple, like I feel like I'm reading like the boxcar.
Picturing white picket fences and all this stuff.
That's kind of what we lived across
like a Norman Rockwell
painting.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it sounds like it was just a very natural progression.
It was.
But was there what was that moment of like, was it with the kids there or did you hear about somebody else teaching or something like that made you go, wait, I want to actually get my credential?
I just felt, my mom was a school social worker, so she worked in the schools.
So it's genetic.
This is his blood.
Yeah, it's genetic.
Blood,
It was, but I remember when I was a summer camp counselor, like I remember making them books of like inspirational quotes and giving that to them. And like and that was my thing, was I felt very close to these kids because this was my hometown. These were like my kids. And
you had a connection with them.
What'd you say, Zoe?
You had a connection with them.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you started young too, didn't you, Zoe? Like working with kids?
Yeah.
You did?
And that was my dream, was to teach in my own community. And so that was cool that I student taught right next door to the summer camp. And then from there, I student taught from like the fall till December, graduated, and then I started subbing. And then later that semester, in the spring semester, I ended up getting a maternity leave position, and I taught at the same school that I went to middle school at.
Okay, that's dope.
And that
you brought it back full circle.
Yeah, and that's that came back. Yeah. And then the next year, I got hired as in District 65 in Evanston, and I taught at a school called Lincoln Elementary School. And my first school was like the dream. The first year was the dream, and the second year was just awful. It was like one of the worst years ever.
I know exactly what that feeling was. The class that got me into I want to become a teacher. a veteran teacher looked at me and was like, "That's a once in a lifetime class," and it's just been like this ever since. Like, but that 1 year was just so amazing.
Yeah.
So let me ask this: you came to you're teaching in Chicago,
right?
When you came to LA, were you knowing that like, hey, I want to do stand up, so I'm going to teach in LA, or did you just somehow end up in LA because you're like, this is a cool place to be, and then you kind of got into stand up? I know we're jumping a little bit further.
No. It's a great question. So my best friend George, who we worked together as the summer camp. He went to USC for college, for film school.
Okay,
he's a film editor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
so in between, it's either sophomore, junior year, or junior, senior year, I can't remember. But there were like 5 of us, all from Evanston. We came out one summer to Los Angeles. We had a ball. And then I kept coming. Then we went out the next summer, and it was less of us, but I kept coming out, and to the point where I was coming out here like every 3 months.
Okay.
And you know how when you go like on vacation or you go to a new city, you can kind of be a different person, than you are in your hometown.
100%.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. I don't want to detour too much, but it's like I feel that sometimes I get like childhood anxiety. When I go back to my hometown.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Sure. Like, well, I'm like, why do I feel like Kimmy Davis? That's a name I made up, but it's like, why do I feel like Kimmy Davis is going to tell me that I'm not good enough for? I'm like, I'm a man in his 30s. Like,
right. And you're a different person.
Yeah.
And so when I was out here, I was able to be the person, that I knew that I could eventually be.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so I remember in 2005, I was out here. I took a trip New Year's, and that's when I had the vision for like a new life, but I hadn't been. I was not a stand-up comedian,
right?
So I moved out here to become the person that I knew I could become.
So it was about more just personal,
but stand-up like was a part of that, but it wasn't like I moved here for a career. I moved here to fulfill, to be the person that I knew I could become.
I actually think it's way more exciting. Sorry.
Yeah.
Because I think you feel that way, quote me if I'm wrong, because it was a new vibe. It wasn't like Chicago. It was way different energy. You start meeting certain people.
It was an opportunity for a fresh start. It was, when I moved, I felt like I had outgrown Evanston
and seasonal affect disorder. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like that.
And I was ready. Yeah. I moved when I was 27 years old, and I moved on July 27th. And I remember picking that date because 27, I was 27. And so, but I feel like the two, I feel like personal growth and growth as a comedian, I feel like those two they're hand in hand.
100%.
So
100%.
Now, I gotta ask, was there anything, because sometimes like people start out in some other creative realm or whatever, was there anything that like when you look back upon now that you're like, oh, this kind of influenced me to even try stand-up? Was there something else that was creative that you enjoyed doing?
This is the great question. This what happened. So I was kind of a late, when I was growing up, when I was in elementary school, I was teased, I was bullied, a little bit in middle school too. And
what for?
I was teased a lot for my last name.
Gotcha.
I was teased just because when I was I was uncoordinated. I wasn't good at sports.
You was tall early too.
Yes. Yeah. And I was just kind of like and I think I was just an easy target.
Dude, it's so crazy because I've heard a lot of really tall people tell the same story, which is the thing that everybody aspires to be and what every woman wants on a thing. But like back then it's like, it's Frankenstein, kill him. And then they come out with like their pitchforks,
So I was just, when I was young, never was I called like talented, never was I called a genius, none of that. I always, I was made to feel the opposite actually.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll never forget the moment, I was a summer camp. This was between the summer between sophomore and junior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just starting to come out of my shell. And I was telling my best friend, George, a story about my day as a camp counselor. And he was like, man, Dave, you need to do stand-up comedy. And then that's how I started. And the very next day I was in his living room and I was performing for him, his mom, and another friend of ours. And their family used to entertain a lot. So I would do like barbecues and Christmas parties and stuff. But I was terrible. I was really terrible.
Everybody's when they start out.
Yeah, but I knew, but there was something that I knew, there was something inside of me that I knew still that this was for me.
Calling, yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's your calling. And so was your material mostly about like teaching?
No, you know what? No, I remember, I would, first of all, I had a yellow notepad and I would bring that up with me and I would literally like, kind of like go off the notepad. Like I was really bad. And I also felt at that time, I thought a comedian was like, you got to be offensive. You got to like I'm doing holiday parties and my best friend's mom was like, you're walking my guests out, you're not going to be allowed.
Alienating.
And I'm just like, oh no, I stand on it.
You're like, I have integrity.
Yeah.
And so, and then there used to be a place, I don't know if you knew this place, Zoe, in Chicago, I think it was called the Buddha Lounge.
Yeah. I remember that.
And
I remember that, I think.
They used to have,
I remember hearing about
they used to have an open mic night. I think it was Sundays. And so I was able to build the confidence because I also did like spoken word. So I would write like poems and stuff and things. So I had the confidence to go up and perform something that was already written and, and memorized. And then from there, I kind of built so then the first mic that I did was a spot in Chicago off the Morse Street L stop. And they still run it to this day. It's called Open in One Ear. That's what it's called.
I think I remember hearing about Billy Tuggle.
Yes.
I know who Billy is.
Yes. And Pete.
What's up, Billy?
And so great guys. And Pete, then when I moved out here in 2006, I got something in my mailbox about this stand-up comedy class by Barry Weisenberg at West LA College. And so I was like, all right, I'll take this. And, when I moved out here, I was messing with chicks. I'm living the life, I got head on the Hollywood sign my first 3 months living out here. That's
typical,
top convertible.
Typical LA stuff. Yeah.
I'm totally.
You thought you were the man.
Yeah, I'm winning.
And everybody if you move to LA, everybody thinks you're the man too. Like, because they're living the fantasy vicariously through you. Like when I used to go back home, people would be like, dude, I don't even want to know what kind of parties you go to.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, it's people think that you're driving like a speedboat out of a plate glass window.
Oh, no, but I was doing it. I was doing it. It was a good, I had a great honeymoon. I had a great honeymoon. So I took this class and I would show up to the class, every Saturday. I would commit to that, but I didn't do the mics. I didn't do any of that. I didn't do work outside of the class. And we had our graduation show at the Improv, and it was December 10th, 2006. And I just remember I'm on the side and I'm about to go up, and Barry said something like, he said something like, just do, this will be just like, you do in class. Because I would do well in class.
Uh-huh.
And then I remember just thinking, and I said, I got this. And I went up and I had my voice. I was speaking in my voice. The material was hitting. And I remember I was talking about like doing the Long Beach Marathon or Chicago Marathon. I just remember that was one of the things I was talking about, was doing a marathon and like crushed, did well. And then I may have done, and then I think I had a friend of mine who got me a spot at like Aqua Lounge, which is a spot in Beverly Hills.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that. But I was still kind of messing with this. I was messing with this chick that I had for like the first year and a half, 2 years that I was living here. So I didn't really like start comedy. Like I do this like every day. Like I do this until 2008. until, you know, I left her.
Yeah.
And like, okay, I'm out. And then it was like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Comedy comes after some sort of thing to where you're forced to commit to it.
I was going to say that too. Like, man, I bet you how many comics have something where something happened and they just went, that's it. And I'm going to go do it. And then just commit the whole time.
Yeah. Because you kind of have to hit like something, I don't want to say rock bottom. Like, I don't want to make it sound like, I mean, there's a lot of basement dwellers in comedy, but like, there's a certain thing to where what made you want to do comedy. We can talk about the psychological stuff as a kid. That's true too. But like, there's a certain level of something's not working out, whether it's in your career or just something. But I'd like to actually ask you, you know, like there's a lot of similarities between comedy and teaching.
Very much so.
And a lot of teachers are really funny, and a lot of teachers are kind of like irreverent, like comedians. Like they got like a dark sense of humor. And that's why we call this a teacher's lounge, because when you kind of go behind the closed doors, you talk to some teachers and you're like, oh, you're like a comic. What was the point where you were like, I can't, because you got credentialed in teaching, you got all that. What was the point where you're like, I can't teach like I am anymore? Like I'm tired of this. I want it to be about comedy more so, and I'm going to make that pivot into that. Like, what was the thing with teaching to where you just were kind of like looking at it and you're like, I got to find a way out of doing it as I know it?
Probably the same thing as what that girl did. He let that girl go.
No, because
just give away.
Because that was still, I was still like just getting started, and and I had only been out here for like 2 years.
Yeah,
and I'd only been teaching at that time 6 or 7 years.
Because teaching burnout is insane.
Yeah.
No, it is. But I can remember. So my first year teaching out here, I had an all right year, but I didn't really, it was all right, but I didn't really
were
care.
You were teaching or substitute teaching?
No, I was teaching. So here was the thing. I was hired by LAUSD as a special ed teacher. I remember they they flew to Chicago. They were doing recruiting trips.
So this is like a casting director?
Yeah, they had
you.
It's
like an audition.
They hired me in like April. And they're like, how would you like to sign a contract knowing that you have a guaranteed position?
Were
you
like, oh, that must have been amazing.
This is my ticket.
So I knew that then I could, move forward with the move because I knew I had a job.
Yeah.
So then, so they hired me as a special ed teacher.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Was LAUSD paying more than they were in Chicago? Like, what were you looking at? Like, what they were going to pay you?
It was, it was more because the cost of living was more.
Yeah.
So
sure.
So then, you had to go. I was hired, but I had to go find a school. So I found a school. It was by the Hollywood Bowl, very very small school, and a lot of like people, the parents would be like entertained in the entertainment industry. Like I had kids whose father was like the executive producer for Curb Your Enthusiasm, and there would be child actors. It was cool school, very, very small, whatever. So the principal was like, he said, special ed, all they do is paperwork. He said, I see you. He saw by the way that I interacted with the kids. He's like, I see you as a classroom teacher. I have an opening for 2nd grade. You want to do it?
2nd grade special ed? No, just 2nd grade.
Okay.
So I did it, and the year was good. It was all right. I remember I did have an incident with a kid, and thankfully, that got settled. But it was kind of a
wait. Hang on, sorry.
That got settled.
That's just too cryptic.
Yeah.
I know you.
It's about to get into
I'm
it.
Just looking out.
Kid like meet me after school.
It sounds like. Are you legally allowed to tell now?
Kid like meet me after school.
Let's not graze over that.
If you'd like to tell.
The kid said I threw him.
And I didn't.
What happened?
That must have made you feel awful too, man. Of like, you're just a beginning teacher, and now you're like dealing with BS.
Well, it was my 5th year. Well, it was my 4th or 5th year. But my first year in LA.
Right. Yeah, it's like welcome to LA.
Right. And so, but the 2nd year was amazing. The 2nd year, I loved it. I loved the 2nd year.
Same grade,
second grade. It was next to my first year of teaching when I taught in Evanston. Like, the dream. the second year was like, I looked forward to coming to school every day. I loved the class. I still am friends today with some, like I went out to dinner like 2 years ago with one of my students from that year.
Oh,
wow. How old is he now?
They're like one of his brother. I had his brother. There were brothers. There were 3 brothers. I had 2 out of the 3 brothers, and one of them just like got engaged, and he's in.
Wow, that's trippy,
that's
dude.
Dope. That's dope.
He must have made an impact on their life for them to stay in touch with you since second grade.
And so I've been even. I'll tell you this. This is interesting. So I ended up getting fired from Evanston. My second year was horrible, and
how'd you get fired?
Because my mentor, he was someone that handled all of the bad kids, and he would specifically request them. And so I did the same thing. Oh, yeah. And I requested all of the, hard-headed knuckleheads, and I was in way over my head.
Right.
But I didn't know that. You know what I'm saying? And it was just a terrible.
You made your life so hard.
Horrible year.
Yeah.
But this is the trip. That was 2004. In 2017, I got a Facebook message from one of my students from that year. And she said, hey, she was like, I'm just reaching out to you. I hope you don't feel this is strange, but she's like, I'm a college student. She said, I'm writing a book on my life. And in doing so, I've had to look back at pivotal moments in my life and people who made a difference in my life. And you were that person.
Wow. That's dope. Yeah.
And
that's cool.
She thanked me, and I remembered her.
That's really cool.
And she just thanked me for helping her. And she said she came from an abusive home, and
what grade was she in?
She was in second.
Wow. That's wild.
So I say that to say that
exactly.
I don't remember Miss Hicks.
Yeah.
So I say that to say that even though that was probably I got fired that year, but I still, there was still a rose that grew from
like Tupac.
Yeah.
Right.
You never know, for sure.
You never know, just what kind of impact you make.
Mm-hmm.
But the second year was great. And then the second year in LA was great. And then by the third year, I was kind of getting more into comedy. And then it was like, oh no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah, I get it.
But I still kept going, and still, because this was all I knew.
Yeah.
And then so my burnout, this is a trip. So 2015, okay, I did student teaching in 2001. Okay, so 2015.
That's a long time, dude, to be teaching. And when did you start teaching middle school?
I never taught middle school.
Okay, you never did. Okay.
Not as a classroom teacher, not as a full-time teacher. So 2015, I was like, at this time I was working in schools in South LA. Somehow I ended up in that pool or whatever you want to call it. So I remember I was originally hired to teach third grade at this school off of Florence and Normandy, which is where Reginald Denny, when the riots.
Horseman Middle School's right there. Okay. Do you know Man Middle School?
I've heard of that school.
I've subbed at all those places.
I've heard of that. Yeah. So I was at a school called Raymond Elementary School. So the third grade classroom got shut down. It closed because they didn't have enough numbers. So then I had to take over a fourth grade classroom. And so I had to reset my energy again. And you're always facing an uphill battle when you have to take the class and you don't have them from the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
It's always an uphill battle.
Who are you? You're not Mr. Lukens or whatever.
Yeah, prove to them the whole time.
And this was probably the first time in my life that I didn't like the kids and they didn't like me.
Yeah.
And
it's real.
We just didn't like each. We just did not.
It wasn't clicking.
We didn't at all.
Yeah.
And so,
do you ever get a message later that's like, "Hey, you might not remember me, but you ruined my life."
we had a bad. It was just bad, and the administrators were
Horrible.
They were on me, and it was just, I could see where it was going. And I remember it was December 2nd, I want to say. And I had finally reached and I have a high tolerance.
Same.
And
for pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I remember I had a meeting. The assistant principal came during the morning recess break time. Yeah. And he just completely chewed me out. And was just it was very tense. It was bad. Mm-hmm. And then I just remember pacing in the hallway, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore.
Let me ask, just to go with that, when you're saying I can't do this anymore, was it the accumulation of teaching all those years, or was it just that isolated incident?
It was the accumulation, but it was specifically
death by 1,000 cuts, but in one really big cut.
That was the camel, the straw that broke the camel's back. That
sounds like not just a straw. That sounds like a camel. The camel that broke the camel's back.
It was just I mentally, physically, emotionally, I could no longer do it.
It's like being in a bad relationship, where you're just finally that last thing. It's like you missed a spot on cleaning this dish, and you're like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. It was just I had completely reached the limit. And I remember calling a friend of mine, Angel Gaines, great friend. She was also
these names, dude. I'm sorry, Angel Gaines.
She's a comedian.
I don't know, Angel. It just sounds like a really tough, Angel Gaines, not something.
Because I needed some muscle on a project,
yeah.
So I called it Angel Gaines.
No, Angel is an angel, and she is a very strong person. But she was also
a teacher.
She's a teacher. She's a comedian, but she was also a union rep. So she was
able
UTLA.
So
she was able to give me the proper protocol to go through. And she said, you need to go. She said, you need to go tell them that you're leaving, and go to the office, tell them that you're leaving, and you need to go to your doctor. And I did.
Did you leave that day?
I left that morning.
Yeah, he's ready.
Holy cow, dude, I gotta give you a...
He had a plan.
I left at 10. She said, you need to go now. And I left. I did not return. When they were at recess, I was gone after that meeting with the assistant principal. So I went down there. I told him, hey, I'm leaving.
I'm out.
I'm out of here.
I'm out.
And I went to Kaiser, saw my doctor. I got he wrote me up for a stress leave. And then
was he just super quick, just that doctor's appointment? Was he hey dude, I'll write you a note because I know how stressful this was? Or could he look at you and be like, yo dude,
I told him, I said, I'm teaching fourth grade in South Central LA. And he was like, you're white.
And he just started writing it immediately.
I get you. I get it.
Yeah, I got a screenwriter.
It's not funny. He didn't even finish fourth grade, and he's already writing it.
And so he put me on the stress leave. And then what was cool was it was 2 weeks before winter break started. So I got the 2 weeks of stress leave, then the 3 weeks of winter break. So I was off. And then January I resigned. And then I didn't start working again until March. And so I had that whole time.
You had pay coming in.
Kind of heal.
And the salary was coming in.
Also, when you say that you resigned, do you mean you resigned from LAUSD or just that teaching position?
No, I resigned from LAUSD.
Gotcha.
And I remember it was such an awakening for me, because I had literally been in school since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And this was my first time for those 4 months, whatever. That was my first time not being in school. So I'm going outside. I'm at Venice Beach at 1 in the afternoon. And
people act like that here?
I'm people are outdoors, at 1 o'clock during the day.
Absolutely.
I saw a whole nother life outside of school.
Yep.
And that was very, eye-opening.
What did you feel when you left LAUSD and you left on stress leave? Did you feel like your stress cut in half after that? Do you remember your stress working at LAUSD? 100%. And do you remember your stress after that to where it was oh my gosh?
I remember, did you guys go to Sal's?
Sal's Comedy
Hole.
Hole. Sal's Comedy Hole.
So I remember
super quick, just for people watching, Sal's Comedy Hole is an open mic, or was an open mic. It's an Italian restaurant
really
too.
Right?
It's an Italian restaurant in LA where there was they had a lot of comedy shows and mics and stuff like that.
Right.
So it was the first open mic outside of Haha.
Was it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the first one.
So I was a regular at Sal's, and I had a good relationship with Sal, and I remember when I was on my stress leave, he took me on his boat in Marina del Rey.
That's so dope.
And I was just doing things like that, you know, and it was just totally like refreshing. And then I started then I became a sub, and then I subbed not in LAUSD. That was the blessing in disguise. I applied for LAUSD and they turned me down. And I was like, what? I thought going from a classroom teacher to being a sub, I thought I just had to sign a piece of paper like it was an open mic list.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, what do you mean?
Did you talk to the union rep or anyone about that? Because my first thought is LAUSD, just out of spite, because you had resigned potentially from, not potentially, you had resigned from a full-time teaching position.
Right.
Going, there's no way that will take you
like
as
an obstacle
sub.
course for you to.
I think I didn't have good references. I think that was part of it. So whatever. It ended up, my plan was that I was going to sub for LAUSD and I was going to do Uber, and both did not work out. And so I ended up finding a sub agency that was right by my house, and I ended up and they work in the charter schools. And so
which charter schools are easier?
Way better, because it was way more relaxed. They can kind of like create positions for you, and it was just like, it was night and day.
Wow. How much of your relaxed personality is a result of not working with LAUSD anymore? Or were you always like that? Because you have a I'm on vacation vibe, doesn't he?
Yeah, always. Yeah, but I know it had to be a relief, though, to let that job go, because I know it was stressful where it probably got in your head. Even when you're doing comedy, you bring it home.
It was one. Yeah. I remember I took my classroom key and I went to Santa Monica Pier. Yeah. And I went to the end of that pier. And threw that as far as I could.
I love it, man. That's like Tom Cruise in the movie Top Gun, where he takes the dog tags and throws them into the ocean.
Into the ocean.
That's awesome.
And so that was that was great.
So no, go for it.
So when you say that, how different, because the charter schools have been, and you say creating a position, but also what I would love to know, man, is, and I know not all charters are the same, right? Or not all schools are the same, but what do you notice on averages, patterns, that kind of stuff, between when you worked with LAUSD, like kids' behavior versus the behavior at the charter schools? Because we always have this image of a charter school being able to pick and choose, right? Almost like a private school. Right. Was that the case, or were they taking anybody that they could, or was it just a different vibe because people wanted their kids to go to a charter? I don't know.
I mean, I think because all the charter schools are different. Some are have more population, higher population than others, but and they all need money. They need money, so they will take kids for the money. But I just think that it's just for whatever reason, maybe it's because there's less bureaucracy. They just don't. It's just more chill. And
so the classes are smaller?
The classes can be smaller. I mean, I've worked at some charter schools that, like the whole school is like 30 kids.
Oh wow.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Like, I mean,
that sounds like heaven, dude.
Yeah. So it's really, I mean, some of these schools I've really enjoyed myself there. And have some great, there were some good time, really great times.
So how do you think, right? When you say the bureaucracy, right? At a charter school, you don't see it and everything. Yeah. How do you think, from your perspective, because you've been inside the classroom and outside of classroom in a charter school, how do you think that they're cutting that red tape, or are they eliminating positions that are unnecessary, or what are they doing?
I think there's less people that they have to answer to, because it's usually like I remember at the school that was like 30 people, it was like a director and the principal and an assistant principal, and that was it. And they just, I remember I would get, the director wouldn't like to see me on my phone, but the principal didn't really care. And it's just and it almost feels like they're more there for the kids too,
instead of just trying to protect their jobs or being compliant, some weird compliance of something or whatever it is. Sure. Like you actually feel like you can be there present and be an actual teacher and do the things.
And it just felt more like individual, like there's not as much pressure for, to follow this curriculum, and we have to take this test on such and such date, and this is when the district is doing it, and everybody, it's none of that.
So with those schools, with charter schools, because they don't get a lot of government funding, like the regular schools do you feel like the parents have to pay more money at the school for different activities?
I don't know how that works.
I think all charter schools are public institutions.
Yeah, they're okay. They're still, because a lot of them are still like on the LAUSD schedule.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And they still, the kids aren't paying to attend, but they will. What they are protective of is, this isn't the school for you. You know what I'm saying? If you're a problem and if you're not, you can't like keep up behaviorally.
Don't bring it over here.
They will, this is not the right
and
fit
they can't do that in LAUSD.
Yeah, I know. LAUSD, right. Dude. Right. That's
complete
why
opposite.
LAUSD is stressful.
Right.
And especially too, as like a new teacher this year,
right.
they're giving me all the orange jumpsuit kids. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like the ones that like are really, because you're a new teacher. It's almost like kind of like a weird hazing.
Okay. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's like getting jumped in with a 2x4.
They dump everything.
It's like hit your chest, and it's like, okay, Tom's gonna like make my life a living hell for a year.
And there's nothing, and that's the thing, when you work for a school district, especially as big as LAUSD, you're at their mercy.
And the classes are overloaded.
You have to do what they tell you to do. I got a funny story for you. So there were a couple years when LAUSD, this is maybe like, I want to say it like started in 2008. And every year I would get a RIF notice.
Right. What's a RIF notice?
A RIF notice is, I believe it stands for reduction in force.
Yep.
So it would say, you're being RIF'd, you're being laid off. So I would be laid off, and then I remember the first year I was like, oh shit, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? And then like 2 minutes later, usually like by Memorial Day, I was hired back. And they did this to me like 3 straight years, where I'd be laid off and brought back.
That's so weird. It's like it's like a gaslighting girlfriend. But it's like, I don't want you. I want you.
Can I add to that real quick? So LAUSD. So what Dave experienced, LAUSD had a teacher shortage when they hired him out of Illinois, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have too many teachers at some point. And I remember that time because I was just a straight sub.
Right.
And then like these teachers, like that hadn't, if they were lower on the totem pole, they're getting RIF notices over and over and over. That just, you're like, but go on. It must have been.
And then they usually do not take effect.
No, sometimes.
So what happened was I was used to being rehired by Memorial Day weekend, by like May, late May. And so In 2011, I wasn't brought. May came around, Memorial Day weekend, wasn't brought back. I was like, oh, like it's and I knew I could not afford to live in the luxury apartment complex that I was living at on unemployment or whatever. So I ended up moving in with my best friend's brother. I wasn't living with him for longer than a week, and I get rehired. And I'm like, man, I just moved. You know what I'm saying? I was looking forward to being on unemployment. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, you just crushed my dreams here.
Yeah, dude. Time off of teaching is that's a terrible thing to teach somebody.
So here's where it got better though. They made me what was called a pool teacher.
What is that again?
So a pool teacher was this. They said we're rehiring you. So I didn't move back to the luxury apartment complex. I stayed. We were living by USC, paying $600.
Can't beat that though. Yeah,
It was 2 bedrooms. So I'm paying $600, right? So so I'm a pool teacher, and what a pool teacher was you're in this pool, you're getting paid teacher's salary, and you're subbing, but you're supposed to. As you're subbing, you're supposed to go and find like a open position. But I'm like
anywhere,
like a school that like that you feel you're a good fit for, or a school that has a vacancy or whatever. So I'm like, what? Like why I'm getting paid teacher's salary to sub? I'm milking this for everything it's
everything
worth.
I can.
For everything. Yeah. I'm getting off at the very last stop. That was my mentality. And I remember there was a supervisor lady who was like in charge of the pool teachers, and she would ask, she's like, so, how many interviews have you gone on this week? And
can she look it up?
Yeah, I mean, she did have she could track you.
Were you just lying? You're like, I went on one on 4th Street, and she's like, oh, which school? And you're like, 4th.
No,
4th
I remember she accused me. She said, I think that you don't want to go back.
And was she being playful? Kind of?
No, like she was being,
like mad.
She was really being, she said, I think that you, and I'm like, what do you mean? You think I like getting paid teacher's salary to be a sub? You think I like going home and not having to think about these kids?
Lesson plans.
You think I like not going home? You think I like not grading papers and doing, I don't know why I'm not getting the job. Is it because I'm white?
Oh.
And so,
did you say that?
No. That was a joke that my barber gave me that tag. My friend Mad Marv.
Yeah. Oh, I know who Mad Marv is.
Yeah. So, I managed to play it. I managed to play that game all the way up until March, and then I finally got a call and something in the mail, and it just said, "No, you've been assigned to teach 1st grade." And the school happened to be in the jungles. And it was Coliseum Elementary School. And it was like, this is where you're going to be. And we're placing you. And that's what I'm saying. You're at the mercy. There was nothing I could do about it.
And that was the job that finally you're like, I'm done.
No. So I did 1st grade there. And that was from like March till June. So it was only a couple months, but it was still like, oh my gosh. And then,
I mostly subbed in like, the hood. Mostly,
yes. But that was my first, because prior to that, I was teaching at this school by the Hollywood Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then when I became a pool teacher, and then that's kind of like what got me in that area. So then I taught 1st grade there in the jungles. And then the next year, I taught kindergarten at a school in South LA, did that for 2 years.
Oh gosh, kindergarten is
and then
terrible.
I was at I had that 4th grade assignment off of Florence and Normandy, and then I was out of there.
Gotcha. And you're just like, okay, I'm just.
And then
done
I was
with
completely,
Dude,
I was completely burnt out.
Sorry,
actually, I got a question. it sounds like you were forced to go on these interviews, right? Or whatever. Did you actually, it sounds like you got really good at purposely bombing
that's exactly what I was doing.
Are you serious?
That's exactly what I was doing.
Can you
That's so funny. So, can we interview you really quickly?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mr. Getzoff, I'm actually looking right now at your resume, and it's pretty impressive. You have a pretty extensive resume. What can you bring to Madge Elementary School that is, I don't know, maybe like a little bit different? You know, what do you feel like you bring to teaching second grade?
Well, I'm very good at pushing the TV screen out and pushing the old TV cart. And
you did not say stuff like that.
No, but I remember. I remember. Okay, I remember. I went on an interview for like kindergarten, and they're like, "How do you handle a kid that won't sit still?" And I'm just like, "I'm just gonna let him run around the room until he gets tired." Oh, wait, that's not the answer I'm supposed to get. I'm supposed to give, you know, just.
So, Mr. Getzoff, we've also noticed that you've taught, you know, all around. How do you feel about grades? How do you like to assign grades? Is there maybe a system that you've come up with that you think is fair, or?
Oh, I don't believe in grades. Yeah. I don't believe in grades. I let them determine what they think they've earned.
We're talking about LAUSD though. I pretty like that.
Why do I got a feeling that that was a real one?
Yeah, that was pretty. I did get a question like that, and I did give. I want to say I did give an answer to something. Yeah, I don't really. You know, I'm more interested in the child than I am the grades. Yeah. It was like, oh well, oh really?
Here's the honest question. We do got to cut out of here in a second.
Okay.
I think Zoe might have stepped outside for something. What do you feel? Because like we're talking about teacher burnout. Do you ever experience that super quickly? And then I want to ask you the final question. Do you ever experience that as a sub? Like teacher burnout as a sub?
No.
And then the other thing is Chris and I talk about this a lot, like on TikTok, and you know, like Zoe talks about, you know, Zoe is actually does instructing for like he's doing like after school programs and everything, and so it's like, which is tough too because kids are like they're done with the day, and then you have to, you know what I mean, manage that. Do you think that because of the red tape, like you were bringing up and everything, because of the stress of just managing so many people sometimes in a classroom, because of the politics of, you know, all the stuff that you have to do,
right,
the job, do the benefits outweigh the BS of teaching, or is it just so much BS that you deal with as a teacher? You, like, if you were to look in the camera and say, is this worth it or is it not worth it?
If I would have do it all over again, I would have just immediately went to be a sub in the charter schools. If I knew what I knew now, I would have, you know, I mean, obviously I gained a lot throughout the, you know, in the journey, you know, and I wouldn't be the same person if I didn't go through what I went through. But my friend, you know, Angel and I say, we're like, man, if we would have gone to these charter schools, we would have done this a long time ago, because it's super easy. It's super chill. The only thing that's hard is like making sure that you have a phone charger with you. You know, you got to make sure your phone doesn't die, because, you know, you can, and just getting, you know, and just getting up every day. But it's super easy. It's super chill. And the nice thing about it is that I still feel like I have something still to give.
Sure.
So I'm still
man.
able to, you know, there's kids
able to pour into kids.
There's kids that still come up, you know, all jokes aside, and there's kids that still, you know, that I taught last year that, you know, that I see this year, and they'd come up to me and they'd be like, man, you know, I learned a lot in your class.
Because you do long-term sub.
Because I taught long-term at a school, and I taught Algebra 1 and special day class Algebra 1. and they, and they thanked me. They felt like they were like, I was some of these kids' favorite teacher, and they learned a lot that year, and it was a great year. So
real quick, with the special day class, one of my favorite things to do that I've ever subbed at was a special day class, math, high school, and I had just like 10, 12 people. That's it at all throughout the day. And it was just different kids coming in. And it was one of the most fun I've ever had in a class. Did you feel that way too when you were doing that?
Yeah, this was I only had 2 periods that I taught. And one was all freshmen, and then I don't remember the grades that the others were, but it was just those 2 classes, and we could go at our own pace. I just would give them, like one assignment a day. If I was tired, we at least had one free day a week. And, and it was just, it was chill, and I'm a chill teacher, and they responded well to that. So it that worked out well.
All right. So let me ask you, since Matt's a first year teacher, if Matt has to stay in LAUSD or whatever, what advice would you give him?
I would say
make comedy work.
No, I would say that don't, it's not life and death. It's not life and death. I can remember, when I was really new and green, and I remember being up I remember not sleeping because I would literally be thinking of like the class and the kids.
Oh, dude, I don't do that.
And the whole.
I'm already, yeah.
But just I would say, and maybe not necessarily to specifically to Matt, but I can remember what you made me think of, Chris, was I had a sub assignment earlier this year. It was like in October.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a kid. This was a very small school, and there was a staff member. He was from a sub agency, and he was just like, man, he's like, I'm here, and he was basically complaining like they're not giving him what he needs to make the room successful and all. And he was like, and it almost was like a training day moment. Like he was Officer Hoyt and I'm Denzel. And I'm just trying to tell him, like, it's not what you think this is. This is, you're not, they don't, it's about, and then he's like, yeah, it's just about money, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah, that's why they have some of these kids here that shouldn't be here, because they're getting dollars.
Right, man. And I think the thing that I've like just kind of peeped is I actually do care about those kids.
Right.
I do. Like but because I'm an electives teacher, I've talked about this a lot. I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but I have almost 40 kids an hour.
Right.
Not in all my classes, but that's on average about what I'm doing. And they're 7th graders. And I'm just exhausted. And it's one of those things to where I was telling my girlfriend the other day, I go, I can't do this long term. I go, I'm doing it right now because I need to. But I was like, long term, I don't think it's sustainable. And I was like, if I were going to teach for more than a few years, honestly, eventually, see, I like my admin. My admin is actually awesome. They're all artists. They're all really cool. They're good people. Like everybody at my admin is awesome. But my vice principal that's at the school, very cool guy. He's leaving, I think, in a year. The dean, she's a friend of mine. She's awesome. They're all cool. I have no problem, but it's just the amount of energy that you have to exude for 7th graders is exhausting.
Sure.
And like sustainably, I'm like, I can't do this because I can feel like myself getting with all these cortisol spikes. It's too much. And I was like, I'd have to go to high school or something because like it's just, so I guess what I'm wanting to ask you is, looking in the camera right there, what do you tell to people who are burnt out with LAUSD and they're just like, hey, but I still got to show up to work, and maybe they really care about their students? It's like, that's the balance, but they're like, Dude, I'm overstimulated to the core because like I think it's something only teachers understand this kind of talk.
Yeah,
I mean, like it's no one else can really understand what teachers are dealing with in the classroom. It's insane. And what do you say to those people who are like, I can't do it anymore, but I have to because otherwise I'm going to be pushing a shopping cart?
I would say leave. And
we should just leave it that. No explanation.
But this is why I say that. So,
but I got a family, I got benefits,
I understand that. And that's why what I remember, it's the golden handcuffs. You know what I'm saying? Yep. It's the golden handcuffs because you can't beat the time off. You get your benefits. If you're single, especially, it's a good salary and so forth. But see, as a sub working in the charter schools, I don't feel like I have to make it, so to quote unquote, in comedy because I enjoy what I'm doing. There's no pressure for me to get out. When I was a teacher in LAUSD, I wanted out. I had to be out. I wanted out of it. Mm-hmm. And now now it can just happen when I leave subbing and I'm making a living on comedy. It's going to happen naturally because I'm not forced to. I can leave on my own, when that time comes, because I enjoy what I'm doing. So when it happens, it happens. But I can sub, I can sub with my eyes closed. It's not stressful, and I still have something that I can give to it. So it works for me.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So it's not.
And I think too, also, sorry to just to interject for a second. I think just to clarify something, we do have to bounce out of here. Yeah. But like, I think a lot of times people think that when you're talking about the stress, it's like you're saying what people online sometimes hear is you're saying, I don't like kids. And that's not what people are saying at all. No. It really doesn't have anything to do with the kids. It has to do with maybe the classrooms have too many kids in them, or it could be that there's just all this weird stuff.
How about all this stuff that's just out of your control?
Yes.
All the things
so much stuff. And a lot of things, they add more, you're piled, you get things piled on you.
Yeah, and that's where the stress comes from. That's everything that you just said right there. That's what it is.
And what they always do, and especially nowadays, it's like, oh, we don't have, whatever they're cutting, they place on the classroom teacher. So you're expected to you're expected to be the classroom teacher. You're expected to be the therapist. You're expected to be
the after school coach.
Yeah, everything.
It's too much.
All of these roles. And it's not, and that shouldn't be it. If they really if the schools were really ran well, if they were properly funded, you would have, a lot of these schools don't have the staff.
Yeah, and it's not even the school's fault, really. It's like it really goes back up to the higher level sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's the school's fault. But,
sure. But what I'm saying is, if you're not happy and you want, like I wanted to get out. Mm-hmm. I had to get out. I had reached the limit where I could no longer do it. And as a sub, I don't feel that way. So it's not, I can show up to work and I'm not stressed out. Mm-hmm. And when the time to leave happens, it will happen. But I'm not, there's not pressure. I don't have to leave because I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That's a great spot to be.
I think that's the best thing. You just inspired a lot of teachers to quit their jobs, dude. So I'm really happy.
Hey, I'm glad I could give that inspiration.
Yeah, dude, we're all going to be teaching on YouTube in a year anyway. So guys, this has been Dave Getzoff. Where can people find you?
Yeah.
Come check me out on Instagram, Dave_Getzoff, Getzoff. Post my shows and clips and everything.
Right on, man. Dude, thanks for coming on here.
Thank you.
I appreciate you, man. You're awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
It was great.
All right.
Peace.
Later.